We'll get started. Thanks for all coming here. I don't think I need the microphone. I think we're good right now. It's a good size. It's pretty intimate space. So yeah, my name is Professor Lenz, and I recognize a lot of you, so probably not huge need for introductions, right? And I've done this talk at a lot of different places, at libraries, college campuses, just kind of out in the communities. And it's the revival of the hippie counterculture. And I thought it would sort of maybe raise some eyebrows, right? And first thing I wanted to ask you all, like, when you think of like the revival of the hippie counterculture, what does that even mean, y'all? When you hear that term, what does it mean to say like revival of the hippie counterculture? Right off the bat, there's maybe a lot of insinuations people might have. What's your thoughts? When you hear that term, a revival, first of all, what's a revival? What's that usually mean? It's like a rebirth. What's that?
Like bringing something back.
Yeah, it's like bringing something back, or like a rebirth, right? Rebirth. It's like a reemergence of something, right? Like an energy or a wave of consciousness is a way to think about that. Like something is happening. And when you think of like a hippie, what's the first thing that comes to mind? So it's like a rebirth or a reemergence of these ideas that once were, maybe never went anywhere, just maybe kind of was more subtle, maybe underground, and now they're reemerging. So when you think of hippie, what does that even mean? What do you all think of? Anybody? When you hear the term hippie, what immediately comes to mind? Yeah.
Just a very like kind of war and stuff. You always think of hippies who are the ones who are wanting peace instead of to further the country's violent acts.
Okay, so you think of like a group of people who want peace, and the thing that comes to mind maybe is like Vietnam. That comes to some people's mind. The images of peace signs and maybe young people pushing against violent tendencies of their governments. Sure. Okay, what else comes to mind? Yeah.
Kind of like against the status quo, they're very like naturalists.
Okay, so something that's kind of against the movement that's against the status quo. The term was more naturalist, a little bit more naturalist. Okay, anybody else have any connotations?
Typically anti-capitalist.
Okay, you think of maybe like anti-capitalist. So like the term I would maybe use is like anti-consumerism, right? So like we're bred, right, to be consumers, consume more, right? But maybe these folks are saying there's another way, rather than just consuming, there's more to our purpose and more to our lives than merely consumption, right? So anybody else have any connotations? So I'm going to argue that or not even argue, just maybe demonstrate, or maybe it'll just become self-evident that it's really about it's a movement of consciousness or higher awareness, or you could call it, if you will, it's a spiritual movement, right? It's a movement towards a deeper kind of wisdom, right? That's sort of what it's about, right? So I've got a couple interesting quotes here. This quote was really famous. This came from both quotes. First one, though, is especially famous. How many heard of Timothy Leary? Oh, come on, people have heard of Timothy Leary. Professor Collins, have you heard of Timothy? You've heard of Timothy Leary? Yeah, he was a famous kind of hippie counterculture icon in the 60s and 70s. He was.
Did you go to Harvard?
He did. Actually, both of these folks did. Timothy Leary, Richard Albert, who became Ram Dass, who became one of the most important spiritual teachers, the second guy. He wrote this seminal book that people called the Hippie Bible in the time. It was called Be Here Now. Be Here Now. Those words say a lot, right? Be here now. Be present, right? And that's where the magic happens, right? And so Timothy, and they were partners. They were friends, like not romantic partners, friends, like really good friends. And they were both in the psychology department at Harvard. Ram Dass' name then was Richard Albert. And the two of them had experimented with, they were psychology professors, had experimented a lot with psychedelics and saw that particularly LSD had held a lot of, if used consciously, not recreationally, it could be used for expanding consciousness, healing a lot of deep wounds, which we're beginning to find now, right, which I'll get to later. So they have these wonderful quotes. Leary says, like every religion of the past, we seek to find the divinity within. Divinity, you might think like God or spirit or oneness. There's always so many different names for it. Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, whatever terms we have. And that divinity within, and to express this revelation in a life of glorification and the worship of God. So really at its core, the hippie movement is actually a spiritual movement. It's a movement from obsession with sort of the physical realm to one finding something in here, deep within us. Right? These ancient goals we define the metaphor of the present: turn on, tune in, drop out. And that just means what? Turn on to spirit, right? Turn on to the spiritual world within us. Tune in, right? Turn on, tune in, drop out. We're saying drop out of what? All of the conditioning of the outward society. So when Timothy Leary made this quote, he was what? He was basically saying all of those institutions that we're conditioned to follow, and all of those behaviors, they're not leading us to spirit, right? They're not leading us to a deeper purpose in our lives. What they're doing is sort of confusing us, manipulating us, forcing us to conform to a system that is not bringing us into a more expanded realm of consciousness. We're becoming sort of like robots of consumption. We're becoming sort of masters to violent governance. We're becoming sadly manipulated by our religious leaders, even though what they were seeking was spirit, right? And that's what Leary was kind of saying. So there's a certain rebelliousness to it, but it's the rebelliousness in order to get clear of conformity and to tune back in here.
And is that to find more inner peace? Is that
To find more inner peace. Yeah,
and to find your authentic self?
To find your authentic self, your inner peace, absolutely. Oh, by the way, for everybody here, this is my beautiful partner, Angela, and she's really a fantastic human being. You'll see today. Right? In Ram Dass, as we grow in our consciousness, there will be more compassion and more love. And then the barriers between people, between religions, between nations will begin to fall. Yes, we have to beat down the separateness, right? So really what that quote's about is what? Unity, right? The hippie ethos or philosophy is about uniting people, right? It's about seeing our inherent oneness, right? And if you combine all of this, the idea is once you sort of find your inner peace, you can share that peace with others, and there's no need to create more divisions or separation between ourselves, right? So these kind of quotes capture a lot of the hippie spirit, I would say, right? So this is kind of interesting, right? Like when people think of hippies, it's usually kind of like, it's kind of like usually superficial versions of what a hippie is. This is the definitions that the dictionaries give us, a free dictionary definition. A person who opposes and rejects many of the conventional standards and customs of society, right? Especially one who advocates extreme liberalism and socio-political attitudes and lifestyles. Okay, so that definition clearly is what? What's it doing? Is that pretty clear? What's that definition sort of doing? Well, it's a little bit partisan. It's saying that being a hippie has purely to do with sort of like rejecting the customs of society. So if you're anti, it's defining what the hippies sort of like against, but not telling them what they're really for, right? And it's also putting them in a box of purely political viewpoints, right? And that's not accurate. That's just straight out not accurate. You can be a hippie and be conservative, right? And have conservative beliefs, or liberal beliefs. You can be an anarchist. You can have more socialist-leaning beliefs. It doesn't matter, right? It's a little bit what I would call superficial. It's not capturing the deeper spiritual essence of what it means to be a hippie, or the higher consciousness or expanded consciousness view of it. Webster Dictionary says, a usually young person not all young people, right? Who rejects established social customs, such as by dressing in a usual way or living in a commune. These definitions are great. I do love these definitions. And who opposes violence and war. Yeah, that part, right? Especially a young person in the 60s and 70s. Again, what are they doing in that second definition? Why is that incomplete? What's happening there? Why is that second definition incomplete? Someone tell me what issue could you take with that second definition? Yeah. What?
It's essentially saying that your whole way of living is just a phase. Like you're young when you're a hippie and then you just grow out of it.
Yeah, it's making it almost seem like just kind of like a, you know, like a just a little phase you go through when you're young. You know, you're dressing in a certain way and then that's it, you know. And then it's making it very well restricted to a particular time and place, just the 60s and 70s. You know, there's a lot missing here. Again, I'm going to argue that this, or hopefully show that it's really about a movement of expanded consciousness, of awareness, of a movement towards unity, towards peace within ourselves that then expands out into the society. And the reason why they're rejecting the outer norms, both these definitions definitely capture the rebellious part.
It's seeking freedom. It's more about seeking freedom than it is rebellious.
It's seeking freedom from the kind of the herd mentality that our institutions lead us in, our media, our education systems. And by the way, when I say education systems, I'm not. There are plenty of teachers who are free thinking within that system, but the general arcs of that system as it is, that may lead us towards more violent tendencies, may lead us more towards an obsession of money, power, and fame, right? And it's a seeking freedom, it's seeking an inner freedom. That freedom is inner.
Right, versus the dualistic thinking.
Yeah, versus a dualistic thinking, right? So here's a definition for y'all that I came up with. And this is what I came up with. By the way, I actually, under my pen name, I wrote a book called The Hippie Revival. And so this is the work, kind of the summary of this, right? So a seeker of wisdom, and we're going to break this down, who consciously tries to attain personal liberation through cultivating the values of soulful expression, peaceful cohabitation, charity, independence, and reverence for the earth. A hippie is also one who seeks to return to a more natural and less mechanical way of living in unity with nature, right? Here's a little definition to work with, right? I would say this is a little bit, it's not perfect. Anytime you try to create a definition for something, you're immediately putting something in the box. So it's always going to be a little bit limited. This is what I came up with, right? So a seeker of wisdom. What's a seeker? Somebody who's one, what's a seeker? Let me say, what's a seeker?
Looking for something.
Somebody who seeks.
Like you're looking for something.
And you're looking for something, right? You're looking deeper for something, right? You're trying to find a greater sense of meaning, right? You're looking for something. And when we say wisdom, what are we talking about? What's wisdom? What is wisdom? Anybody have any ideas? A seeker of wisdom, right? What's wisdom? Someone jump in with me. What does that even mean? What's the idea of wisdom?
When she gives me advice,
Okay, so you think guidance, how you should go about things. Okay, yeah, what else?
kind of like applicable knowledge. So I can apply knowledge to every day.
Oh, okay, then we're getting way closer. That's really good, like applicable knowledge, okay? I got another way to say that. Maybe we could say it's something, well, I would say wisdom, knowledge, how about this? Knowledge can oftentimes lead us to seek wisdom, right? So knowledge is concepts and expanded thoughts and theories and all our perceptions that's going on in our mind, right? Knowledge is kind of up here. Wisdom, right? Wisdom is kind of found where? More in here, right? Wisdom is like what I would argue, wisdom, not knowledge, is the true fruits of life. That's what leads us to have, how do I put this? It would lead us to have a greater faith in the way of things, right? Whether, whatever we're going through in our lives, to somehow have a greater, deeper appreciation and understanding that everything that is happening in our lives is perfect just the way it is, right? And then on top of that, it's like an inner faith of your relationship to yourself, to the greater reality, and you could call that greater reality God, you could call it the universe, you could call it oneness. It has so many different names. It's just an understanding of your place in the world and how you relate to it all, right? And that wisdom comes through life experience. And oftentimes the path of knowledge, the seeking of truths, the seeking of how your political system works, how your economic system works, how your social system works, oftentimes we'll start kind of like looking at the world around us on the outside. And that brings us knowledge. And that curiosity and seeking, hopefully, will start to get what? Like lead us to search where everything. Not just outside, but what? Inside, within ourselves. Right? That at the core, right, is what is seeker of wisdom, and that is another way to put that, a deeper understanding of life, a deeper understanding of how we relate to life. And that's what the hippie is after. Personal liberation. What's personal liberation? What's that mean? Seeker of wisdom consciously tries to attain personal liberation. What do you all think that means? Personal liberation. Do you have any ideas of that? What's personal liberation? What's that mean? Oh gosh. Yep.
Shackling yourself or unshackling yourself from the things that make you unhappy or feel trapped in a box.
Pretty good, right? Unshackling yourself from all of the things that make you unhappy, that make you
Not you.
not you, not your authentic self, right? It's about personal liberation is really about finding your authentic self. It's detaching yourself from all of those conditioned things in our society that make you sort of alienated from who you really are within yourself. So the anger, the pettiness, the jealousies, this sense of inflated self-importance, all of those are just manifestations of our lack of inner peace, right? And you're seeking liberation from that. Another way to put that, personal liberation, is freedom from attachment. Right? I've all heard about the idea of attachment. There was a great spiritual master, many spiritual masters. Christ taught this becoming less attached to the things of the world. Buddha, right, taught that attachment was the source of suffering. And the key was personal liberation from those things. Like that's what we mean by that, right? So they want to achieve personal liberation through cultivating the values of soulful expression. What's soulful expression? Being your what? Your true self, right? Being your authentic self. Peaceful cohabitation, that's obvious. What does that mean? It's peaceful cohabitation.
Being peaceful with each other.
What's that?
Being peaceful with each other, getting along.
Yeah, being peaceful with one another, getting along, right? Seeing, how about this? Seeing that we are coming to the understanding within yourself that we're all connected, that we're all one, right? And that also extends to what? Not just other people, but what?
All life.
Yeah, all life. We have that picture right behind us, right? In this room right now, of nature. Right? That's a beautiful picture. One of the trails out here, right? It's that sense of your connections not only to each other, it's to the earth, right? You're recognizing that all is one, that all is connected. No separateness. Right? Charity, that's pretty obvious. What's charity? It means you're not giving to somebody else because you're expecting something in return. You're giving because that's just everybody you encounter is your brother and sister on a soul plane. The true path, we're all connected in one. So if we see somebody in trouble, why wouldn't we help each other out? Why wouldn't we help out our neighbor? Right, so charity. Independence, kind of what Angela was talking about, freedom, right?
Freedom, sovereignty,
Freedom,
be
sovereignty,
determined to express the truth of who you really are.
yeah, to express the truth of who you really are, right? And reverence for the earth, that's obvious, right? Respect, deep respect for the earth. Not just like, I recite it, right? You know, that's a step, of course, but the reverence, but I mean like truly feeling that you are a part of the entire interrelated process and workings of the earth, right? And to return to a more natural and less mechanical way of living in unity with nature. Not living so mechanically. What do I mean by that, y'all? What's it mean to not become like a mechanical human being anymore? What do you think is even meant by that? A mechanical way of living. What's the mechanical way of living? Someone tell me. What do I mean by that? What's a mechanical way of living? Someone who's, I would argue, someone who's not really in tune with their authentic self would live in a more mechanical way. What the heck does that mean?
Or a follower.
Like a follower mentality, yeah. Like what?
Like going to college, getting a job, paying your taxes.
Yeah, well, you know, you can still do those things and not live mechanically, right? You can still go to college. You can, so doing something that you know is out of tune with your authentic self, but you do anyways because you think that that's the expectation of you, right? Or following, you know, attitudes or behaviors that you know are out of line with who you really are, but you continue to engage in those behaviors anyways, because that's just what the people around you are engaging in, right? You know, and until you really free yourself from a mechanical way of living, until you really tune within yourself and seek your inner freedom, you really can't attain a true state of happiness. You can attain contentment, many hippies would argue, but you can't attain true inner liberation. So you free yourself from that mechanical way of living. And of course, right, mechanical way of living refers to what? Our over-reliance on consumer industrial society and being what? Beholden to, you know, you guys know what I'm talking about, the very detached from nature living that we've sort of created. You know, I read recently that the average American is on their phones. Guess how many days? Guess how many hours a day? This is going to blow your mind. Want to take a guess? 6 hours a day to spend on our phones, the average American. 6 hours. How many people honestly are guilty of that sometimes? 6 hours a day, right? So that might be part of that mechanical way of living. And we're conditioned that way, right? You know, so it's not surprising that many hippies seek what? To release themselves from that mechanical way of living and to step into the wild, into the green oasis, right? Nature. So that's essentially what we're saying right here. Is that a little bit different definition than what we have above? Well, it encompasses what? Young, old, infinite in that? Middle aged, infinite in that? Black, white, gay, straight? Anybody can be, basically that's an all-inclusive definition. Anybody can be a hippie by this definition, right? It's completely expansive. It brings everybody in. Doesn't matter how you dress, doesn't matter how you look, right? This is really about what's happening within yourself. Okay. What are we doing? You want to add anything so far? Now, there is a certain, why do you think people associate the hippies with like rebelliousness? Why is there a rebelliousness connotation? Yeah. Yeah, Yeah, because there's an attempt by our institutions to program us to become mechanical, right? To become robots, to become detached from our authentic self. So naturally, many hippies find themselves in, conflict or tension, maybe is a better word, with the established, what I would call programmers, of our society. All right.